In this video, we're going to look at the screen functionality of the Stack Temp Controller, and really the overall system functionality as well. Right now, we're looking at an idle screen. System is not on. We are, however, at temperature, or at a temperature right now. We are not hooked up to a system though. This is a simulated temperature. Just a little bit easier to show you the screen in this setup. So right away, let's see what happens when we enable the system. On the right hand side, you can see that vertical scroll bar increasing. What we have there is an indication of the speed of the blower. So you saw that kind of gradually going up. That's the blower speed increasing, ramping up based on where we're at as far as how far away we are from the target. So right now we're simulating 447 degrees, but we're wanting to get to that 500 degree target temp. So right now that blower is running wide open trying to get there right now. So let's simulate what happens when the temperature starts to increase, which is what should happen. When you put more air into that firebox, the temperature should start going up. And the quicker that goes up, the more you'll see that indicator on the right hand side coming down and the blower reducing its speed to adjust. Now, if we're right at our target, we're right at 500, the speed of that blower should pretty much hold steady. It knows that that's right where it needs to be at the moment in order to maintain that target temperature. What happens if we overshoot a little bit? You know, maybe something kicked around inside the firebox and our temperature goes up. You'll see that speed of that blower start to come down. The more we overshoot that target, the more that's going to come down and compensate. Now, most of the time, you're not going to see it have this big of an error. That's just, we're simulating that. The controller is going to be constantly adjusting in order to lock onto that target temperature. We're really just showing you what happens when you go above and below that target, really just to show you what's going on inside the system. But if we bring that back down, you'll see that when we get right onto our temperature, that speed is going to pretty much hold steady. Now, of course, you're going to run out of wood eventually, right? Let's say we were running at 500 for a while, but now our fire is going to start to die out a little bit here. Again, you'll see that indicator on the right simulating that the blower's increasing speed. And one nice thing about that indicator is, because I mean, you got a lot going on in your shack, you're not going to be able to hear that blower whether it's running fast or slow. So when you look at the screen and you see that you're running at a low temp right now and your blower's running at maximum speed, I mean, that's a dead giveaway that you better start getting ready to shut this thing down and top off your stove. But if you're not paying attention and when we go too far below our target temperature, we get an alarm. So that's your definite indication right there that you're out of wood. You gotta disable that blower, open her up and top her off. So in order to acknowledge that alarm, you can touch anywhere on the screen and that will it'll mute that alarm for a certain amount of time, and I'll show you how to configure that in a second. But we're low, so let's turn that off. This is where you would go and put more wood in your firebox. Let's see what else we got going inside this guy. Obviously, you want to be able to set that target temperature. There's a couple different options for that. You can go in 100 degree increments, up or down, or you can go in 10 degree increments, up or down. let's say we're at 900. That's a pretty typical operating temperature. We'll go back. Now, from what we learned, if our error is quite large, that blower should crank up right away. So let's say we just topped off the stove, we closed the door, and we're going to re-enable. That thing took off almost instantly. So that thing is running wide open right now. And it's kind of hard for me to simulate just how fast that'll take off, but it'll take off fast. The recovery on this is pretty amazing, but you'll see that once we get into that target set point, you can see that speed start to come down and lock right into that temperature. All right, so we saw how to adjust our target. Let's go to settings. Inside our settings here, there's a couple different features. The first one is an external enable. If this is selected and we go back, this actually turns into an indicator. There's no functionality on the screen. There's a cable on the controller where you can hook up an external switch. So if the screen is way off to the other end of the room and you wanted to be able to enable or disable this remotely, say closer to the door on your evaporator, you can put it into this mode, and when your external switch turns on, this will turn on. And when your external switch turns off, that'll turn off. It just gives you another indication of system status. We'll go back and turn our external enable off. The other feature on here is that alarm. So enable or disable that alarm. Obviously, we saw that it was enabled. We were able to see that alarm come up on the screen. The differential is how far below your target needs to be before the alarm kicks on. So let's say that we were running at 900. Our target was 900. And now we drop down to 850. 850 and below, being it's 50 degrees below that set point, is when your alarm's going to occur. And then the mute time, as soon as you touch that screen, it's going to mute that alarm for 5 minutes. This is especially useful if you have an external alarm. There's on that same cable on the system, you can wire in an external alarm. Some guys, they'll use, there's one setup we have right now where they're using a fire alarm. So this is controlling a relay that's controlling that fire alarm, and it's loud. So you can go outside and chop wood, and as soon as you hear that alarm going off, you hurry up back in and top off the stove. So it's pretty handy. But the thing is loud, so you may want to have a certain mute time so that if you don't have your wood available right away and it's going to take you a couple minutes to fill that fire back up, you're going to want that alarm to stay off for a certain amount of time. So that's adjustable. So we can see, we can change that differential and we can change the mute time. All right, I think that's all we needed to cover today. In the next video, we're going to show how to do the install, and it literally takes about 10 minutes, not even. So we'll show you just how quickly the setup is on this, and go through some of the cabling features, some of the external features like with that alarm and the remote enable, and we'll see you then. Thank you.